1, 2, 3, 4. Those are numbers, but you already knew that. If you want to know what number you're going to pay each month for your car, use Kelly Blue Book My Wallet on Auto Trader. They're really good at numbers. Auto Trader.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
And hello, welcome to Unequal Sequel. My name is Dave, and I'm one of your two hosts of this blistering podcast.
And I'm Rich, and I'm the other host of this blistering podcast. Think of me as Billy to Dave's Gizmo. He's small and cute and fuzzy, and I never feed him after midnight.
True. You shouldn't. The premise of Unequal Sequel is very simple. We ask our guests their best ever sequel, their worst ever sequel, and finally their dream sequel.
And of course, we often drift off and talk about other things, not just movies, but, life in general.
I should also point out, we do love to delve into spoilers of movies, new and old. So if we mention a movie you haven't seen and you don't want it spoiled, just go out in the garden, grab a pot, put a plant in it, water it, come back in, we'll be over, and it'll be all right. Because on today's episode, we are joined by Dominik Diamond.
So excited. Dominik Diamond is a 90s hero, absolute hero to both me and Dave. You might recognise him as the presenter of GamesMaster. If you are off of the 90s like we both are, or you might maybe have heard him read his column all about computer games. If you're an adult gamer, he's got loads of stuff for you, but he's a brilliant guy, and me and Dave were really excited to talk to him.
Yeah, very excited to sit down with Dominik and chat all things sequels with him.
These are Dominik Diamond's Unequal Sequels. Enjoy!
We do have a quick question just to warm up your mind that we always ask every guest, and it is, what is the first sequel you got excited about? Do you remember that?
Oh, I think it's probably the same as a lot of people. Empire Strikes Back. That was the age I was. I was 7 when Star Wars came out. Absolutely blew my mind. So, in fact, Empire Strikes Back, I was so excited. I actually read I'm pretty sure the book version came out first, and I remember reading that. So all that kind of "I am your father" thing was actually a bit spoiled for me. And I've now just spoiled it for the one person out there who's not seen Star Wars. But yeah, so that was it. Definitely Empire Strikes Back, and it did not. I hate sequels that don't end. Finish the movie. Give us a movie with a beginning, a middle, and end. Don't just fluff us for the third one. That really annoyed me about Dune recently. I was just like, oh, come on. You've stopped halfway through. So, yeah, I think more and more I get irritated by Empire because it doesn't end properly.
But you didn't have that problem when you were 7, though, did you?
No. I was just like, man, he's got his hand cut off. How's he going to fight with one hand? That was basically it. That was my thing. And oh no, Han Solo's dead and he's the cool guy, and then I was just really confused with, did he kiss the sister? And I was like, yeah, even though I'm only 7, I know that's a bit weird. even on the east coast of Scotland, where people marry their sisters.
So at that point, as you watched Star Wars, you knew what was going on. You were all up to date.
I've watched Star Wars about 8 times in the cinema. I mean, I went. I think there was one time I watched it like on a Saturday and a Sunday. It was the first movie that I was completely obsessed with, and it was really interesting when I've kept meeting people throughout my career who were as obsessed. I remember when like Ash became one of my favorite bands ever because they had that debut album called 1977 that opened with the Star Wars sound effects. I remember when I finally got to interview them and met them, and we just talked about Star Wars, and you just realize it was such a touchstone for an entire generation. I can't even think of another sequel that I probably would have watched Jaws 2.
Yeah.
But I can't even think of another sequel really around that time I can even remember. as much as Empire.
They were so much more of a rarity back then than they are now. Now it's every week there's a new sequel or a new franchise film dropping. It's not a special. I imagine it had been quite special there.
Yeah, it was. And I think because Star Wars did have a beginning and a middle and an end, and it actually was a perfect standalone film. It was like, okay, that's it. You know, the good guys have won and everything. So I think when I saw it for the first time, I didn't even contemplate the possibility of a sequel. Because, you know, like you say, the films that I'd watched didn't have sequels. And then all of a sudden it was like, you know, not only is it a sequel, but there's going to be 3 of these. And then it was interesting that later on, in my life, when the prequels came out, I actually did the official Radio 1 documentary on Star Wars, and as a result, I ended up getting a script, which is probably my most prized possession. I've got an original shooting script of Star Wars where it's still called The Adventures of Luke Starkiller.
Oh my God!
And that dialogue is even worse on the page than it was when it made it to the actual movie. So it's definitely been a franchise that's been my whole life, because, you know, my kids absolutely loved it as well. And then with the sequel trilogy as well, which I thought was amazing. And it was amazing actually talking to my kids, because my kids are all teenagers and one's in their early 20s, and that reaction to the wokeness of the second one, and it was great discussing that with my kids, who are all wonderfully woke, and rightfully so. So it was absolutely fascinating to talk to them about the roles of female characters. So it went through 3 stages, and it was like, so the first trilogy was just like bedazzled as a child, the second trilogy was just crashing disappointment, and the third trilogy was socio-political discussions with my children. So it was wonderful. It just straddled my entire life. It was great, you know?
That's fantastic. Amazing. I love what you said about the scripts, because there's the famous Harrison Ford line where he says he changed all of his lines because he said to George Lucas, "George, you can write this shit, but you can't say it."
It's so incredible that it is what it is now, because on page, like you said, it's a bit of a disaster, and it's quite a hard sell, especially back in the late 70s. Like, okay, guys, we're going to try and make this sci-fi soap opera with a giant teddy bear, these electronical machines.
Yeah.
What age did you try and make your kids watch Star Wars? I want to know this.
Oh, I was one of them. I mean, as soon as they were sentient, I think with my oldest daughter, it was the second kind of grown-up thing that I made her watch. The first was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I mean,
okay.
I watched the whole series. She was 3 years old, and I sat down with her and watched that, and that became her. So that was my favorite TV show of all time, and I wanted to call her Buffy. And my wife wouldn't let me, because she said Buffy Diamond sounded like a porn star. And so I was like, right, yeah, it's true. And I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna make sure. But this kid loves it, and it's my daughter Molly's favorite TV show of all time, and she wishes she had been called Buffy as a result. And then I remember, so I would have made her watch Star Wars probably about four or five as well, and all my kids just love it as well.
That's so good.
And I was lucky, and when we did GamesMaster, we did a feature on LucasArts, and I got to go to George Lucas's ranch, and that was quite an amazing experience. But it was really annoying because we were supposed to have an interview with him, but it fell through on the day. And what we did in the end to take the piss is that we had my mate Bobby Ball, who worked, not the Bobby Ball, but we called him Bobby Ball because he had curly hair like the comedian Bobby Ball.
Yeah.
And he worked for Virgin Games, who published LucasArts, and we dressed him up as Darth Vader. And I interview him, and I say it's George Lucas, who's only agreed to be interviewed dressed as Darth Vader, and with someone voicing him and everything. So I've been to his house, or his fake ranch house.
Yeah.
I never quite got to meet him, which was a bit annoying.
Can I ask what the ranch is like? I bet it's changed a bit, but was it as magical as you hoped it to be at that point?
What is brilliant about it, and you have to really, you have to give yourself over to the fiction here, because his ranch has a story, and the story is, if I remember correctly, it's of a traveler who wanted to build this place, and he used it using bits of wood washed up from an old sunken galley. And there's all this stuff they're telling you, and you're like, this is George still actually writing his own fairy tale here. But you just have to surrender yourself to it, and you're like, this is fantastic. It's better than saying, all right, here's a bathroom.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Are the bathrooms named? I imagine they are, right?
I can't remember if they were, but yes, they probably would be. I know that I got the film in one that had like a big jacuzzi and everything. That was where we filmed the interview with George Lucas, aka Darth Vader.
That's like Mecca to a lot of geeks.
It was great. But no photograph. I've no photographs from that, and I don't know why I don't, because it's annoying, because we just did this GamesMaster, the oral history book, and I searched through and I found all my old stuff, but I don't know why. You know why? It's because we didn't have cell phones back in those days.
Yeah.
So
you
annoying.
Take a camera with you and do it, like, you know.
What just out of interest, Star Wars games, any high points and low points for you?
Oh, the original X-Wing TIE Fighter games. I thought they were
good. The simulator ones, yeah.
Oh, they were just absolutely incredible, because I would turn off all the lights and play them on my PC monitor, and it was just completely and utterly immersive. And I loved the way that the X-Wing and the TIE Fighter were different, in that the X-Wing had more armor, could take more hits, but was slower to turn, whereas the TIE Fighter was so maneuverable, but like one shot and that was it, and you realize that's why they get shot down so much in the movies so easily. I thought it was absolutely brilliant.
I'm going to ask you what your best ever sequel is.
It is T2, not Terminator 2. Trainspotting 2 is my absolute favorite sequel of all time.
Brilliant. Before you get into this, why this is your favorite sequel, this is the first time in the podcast that we've had someone's best sequel, which was a previous guest's worst sequel.
No way. Oh, that's fascinating.
That's why I love this pod.
Brilliant. That's great.
So why do you love it so much?
Well, because I thought it was impossible to pull off. You have these movies that are so utterly iconic and so meaningful to you, and Trainspotting, the original, resonated with me so much as a Scottish person that comes from a generation of alcoholic fathers, and you're cursed to a certain, you carry addiction, you inherit it, and I went through it myself, so I didn't do heroin, but so just that whole idea that of what drugs make you do, but at the same time, it's really fun. The up is brilliant, the down is horrible, and it completely replicated that. And things like the worst toilet in the world scene. I have seen people do that with wraps of cocaine. So just all the stuff was like, oh my God, you've perfectly represented drug culture of the 90s, the highs and the lows. And realize that at the end of the day, you have to run away from it. You have to do what Renton says. You have to get out of it. And I was like, it was an amazing, groundbreaking book. It was an incredible movie of it, and it was just every aspect of that movie was the 90s. The typography, the poster, the image of Ewan McGregor, that whole load of amazing actors who then went on to do incredible work. And I was just like, leave it there. And when Porno came out, the book, and I didn't really like that. So I was like, oh no, it's going to be based on porno as well. This is going to be an absolute disaster. And with every passing year, the longer it takes between movie and sequel, the worse you kind of think it's going to get.
Absolutely.
But it came out, and not only did they pull it off, but I thought it was a terrific movie with a beginning, a middle, and an end, a proper story. But it also, I think, in many ways, it's a masterclass of sequel making, because I think a sequel needs to call back to the first movie but also evolve it in different ways, and it needs to develop. It's like the different movements of a symphony, and I think that Trainspotting 2 does that in clever ways, like the music, which again was iconic. Those two tracks, Lust for Life and Born Slippy, it kind of hints at them throughout. It brings them back in little ways. The most brilliant bit is when Mark Renton goes back to his old bedroom and he puts it on the vinyl and he puts the needle down and he goes, and then he pulls it right off. And it's just like, oh, but it's brilliant. And it keeps doing that right, and until the end of the whole movie, when he's back in that bedroom and everybody has realized, I think anyway, that the most important thing is family, because they all end up with different aspects of family at the end. And only then can he put on that song, and he puts it on and he dances with this wild abandonment that he had, all the 20 years before. And the camera pulls out, and this amazing long tunnel shot that becomes the train, and you're just like, wow. So, I think it's just brilliant.
When you first going to watch it, did you nervous going into the cinema? What were your initial thoughts? Were you wary? Did you have your family with you? Did you have your daughters and your son?
No.
Did you go by yourself?
Watch it myself during the day, like first day that it came out. I prefer that, actually. I much prefer. I think the worst thing about going to the cinema is other people.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's horrible. The rustles, the noises, the smells, the pot. I mean, who the fuck needs to eat nachos with cheese at a cinema? I mean, I don't understand it. I mean, when I go with my wife is one of these disgusting human beings who gets triple butter layered on the popcorn. There's more butter than popcorn, and it's horrible. So I much prefer going to movies or more. And there was a great period of time where I had a column in the Daily Star, like a kind of news column a couple of times a week. But in the Sunday Star, I reviewed movies and TV and music. So I got to go to the press screenings, and they were all nice, 10 o'clock in the morning. And that was brilliant. 10 o'clock in the morning, sitting in a wee cinema in Glasgow with like 8 other critics who were all reverential and hushed and quiet, and so, definitely Movies on Their Own was great. So I watched it on my own. I was very nervous. I'd heard a bit of the buzz that said it was okay anyway. And I think that, right from the beginning, you realize it's going to be smart, because like the original film, it starts with Renton running, but this time it's not through the streets of Edinburgh, with this excited exuberance of youth, but at a horrible rabbit warren of a gym on a treadmill. And I just thought, that's it. You're making the connection. This is the running you do then. This is the running he does that. And I'm like, I think this is what you're going to do throughout this whole movie. And it does. And the fact that, Spud, when we have the catch up with him, he is, it's a version of the fantastic Motormouth job application interview from the first movie, except this time he's talking about, why he was a junkie. So already it was very efficiently within the first 10 minutes, every character gets updated in a way that links back to what they did in the first movie. So very quickly, I thought, no, I think this is going to be all right. And then actually it came more of a lovely kind of guessing game. I'm like, okay, so how are they going to bring back this character, and how are they going to bring back that character? And then they do, and there's this lovely little reward all the time throughout the film when you get little bits brought back.
I actually really like Begbie in this movie. I think his growth and his change through this movie is really different. I think he really stands out because, Sick Boy and Renton and Spud, they haven't really changed. There's no real kind of growth. They're still the same people they were in the first one. But Begbie kind of ends up being different. He kind of softens.
Oh, I
think he does. He has that conversation with his son, doesn't he, where he kind of apologises.
Yes, and I think that's... Yeah, and I think that is a genuinely beautiful bit. I think what is amazing about Robert Carlyle in this film, he's the one character who looks different. The other 3 guys still pretty much look the same as they do, because Johnny Lee Miller and Hugh McGregor never age, basically. But Begbie looks grown up. He's a much older guy. He's got a much more thick-set face. He's a proper grown adult, but still bristling with this horrible violence that can just erupt at any time. And again, I think that what is great about that character is that that's what the majority of working class Scottish dads on council estates, that's what our dads were like. That, they could be really funny, and Begbie can be really funny, but there was just always that latent violence underneath that could come out at any moment. And I think Robert Carlyle's performance in both movies is utterly incredible. And especially because I've met Robert Carlyle, I've had a drink with him, and he's not like that at all. He's really intellectual, soft-spoken. It's an incredible transformation to have just that power and that danger. And I do agree with you, Rich. I think that I said that by the end of the film, the characters all recognize that family is what it's about. And I think Begbie's one is the most poignant, that even though he is still capable of horrific violence throughout, that when he says to his son, it's all right to go off and do, hotel management, and he tells him that about his dad being the alcoholic that they find in the train station that gave the whole birth to the whole name Trainspotting, which wasn't in the original. If I remember, I'm pretty sure that wasn't in the original. And I remember people saying, "Oh, why haven't they got that scene from the book in the original movie? Because it's the most poignant." But he's saying, this was my dad. My dad was an alcoholic, and I was trapped into being this person. You have a chance of getting out, and he says, "Take it." And actually, that Begbie's son is probably the only one that. The first person that will escape from that predetermined kind of, working class council estate violent thing, apart from, maybe Spud, because, Spud, and what again is a brilliant part, that is just this wonderful post kind of modern meta thing that Spud turns out to write Trainspotting. And that's just beautiful as well.
I really like that too.
How come someone said it was the worst sequel ever on this point? This is really, I'm saying these things and I'm like, how can someone not have seen the beauty in this movie?
Listening to you, I don't know either.
They would have liked it not to be in Scotland, was one of their, they felt it was too, similar. And what I love about film, any film, is that someone's worst film can be someone's favourite film.
Yeah.
And they don't think any character has really evolved, which is I don't agree with.
But I think that's the point, is that they are trying to, Renton is desperately trying to evolve, but the minute he comes back, it's only a matter of time before he takes heroin again. It's only a matter of time before he gets sucked into some dodgy scam, because it's friendship. These are the bonds, that when you grow up and you have this disconnect with your parents because of violence, because of alcoholism or whatever, that you make those bonds with friends. And that's again what's so lovely that they do in the sequel, is these lovely shots back to the playground on their first day at school. Because you wonder a lot, why is he even friends with Begbie? And then you hear, he was sat next to him in that first day at school and he was the older kid. And those bonds you make in working class areas with your schoolmates are absolutely, they're resolute and they're firm, and you will end up doing anything with them. My friend Kirk, who I didn't meet at school, but I only met when he became a co-commentator on GamesMaster, or kind of just before he did, he's the naughtiest guy in the world. He just gets me in trouble. He got me in trouble throughout the 90s. And if you ask, his mum hates me, my mum hates him, or rather hates our relationship, because they each think that we're trouble. And it doesn't matter how old we are, or how many children we have, or what positions of responsibility we're in. If we get together, some bad shit's going to happen. Because maybe it's just us, but that's what a Scottish kind of guys' friendships do,
That was me when I was a kid. I was the kid that got everyone else in trouble.
I was the kid being dragged along. Yeah. But Leslie, my friend's parents would tell you something differently. Do you think that it's a generational thing as well, as in that you've seen that and you've been there kind of thing, relate to it, and especially being Scottish as well, you can see growing up.
Yeah, it's difficult because I can only see the movie really through my own eyes. And But that said, I think you got a point, because my wife, who grew up on the absolute opposite extreme than I did, in that she grew up in Kent in a house with horses and a fucking tennis court, she doesn't get Trainspotting, either the first one or the sequel, So I suspect you're right that there maybe has to be. Well, I don't know. I think that what was clever about the original movie was I think that the casting was so right that they were, with the possible exception of, obviously Begbie and Spud less so, but with Johnny Lee Miller and Ewan and Kelly MacDonald, the three most drop dead gorgeous, charismatic beautiful to look at people. And then with the music, which wasn't remotely Scottish, I think those were two things that people could connect to, because you would be like, I really fancy Ewan McGregor, I really fancy Kelly MacDonald, man, I really love that Lust for Life. So I think maybe that would be where someone who wasn't Scottish might have more problems with the second film, because I think the second film is much more entrenched in just the absolute soul-destroying shit of being trapped in a working class Scottish low-income existence.
Yeah. Do you have a favourite scene? Because my favourite scene is when Begbie and Renton first set eyes on each other in the men's toilets, when they slowly go up. And then that chase follows with the music. Awesome. They both know, and they think, "Oh, fuck."
Yeah, it's great in the way the tension builds. It's like blowing up a
and
balloon,
the music
and
plays.
then it just bursts. And it's a great scene. But no, my favourite scene, and a lot of fellow Catholics and Celtic supporters in Scotland have this as their favourite scene, is the scene with in the Orange Lodge, when they steal all the credit cards because they know that the credit card PIN number is going to be 1690, the Battle of the Boyne. And I'm telling you, that is true. A lot of it was such a brilliant bit of writing, because Irvin Welsh is a Hibs fan and they're the Catholic team in Edinburgh, so he's pretty anti-Rangers as well. And it was just he was just bamming them up. It was just absolute trolling to the nth degree. And it is just so wonderfully done that, I mean, I'm just laughing that there's that whole thing about when he lands on that line in desperation, and there are no more Catholics left, and there's that silence, and then the cheer, and then you see Renton, because this is what's great about Renton and Sick Boy, they're both incredibly intelligent, and there is nothing worse than being an incredibly intelligent Scottish person trapped in a low-income working class prison. And I was very lucky myself in that I was that, but my mum, God bless her, my mum sent me off to get to sit a scholarship exam for a posh boarding school, and I went there when I was 11 or 12. And I know people who were the same age as me, who were as smart as me, and they did become drug dealers, because that's really the only test of your intelligence, really, is getting away with crime. So I just thought that you see Renton's mind going, and then when he starts coming up with these different lines and using words like heft and bereft and to rhyme with this, and there were no more Catholics left, and he just goes on, and he keeps coming up with more and more, and it's like waves and waves of humor kind of crashing onto a shore. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's an incredible. I can't think of a better, funnier scene that represents the madness of Scotland in any movie more than that, the Orange Lodge scene in Trainspotting.
Brilliant.
Amazing.
I love that.
Were you happy whether they left the characters? And if they said, because apparently there's going to be a Begbie TV series. If they said we're going to do T3 in about, I don't know, another 10 years, would you be excited for that, or would you think, let's step away now? There's nowhere to go.
I don't think there should be another movie. Well, I didn't think there should be a second one, and they pulled it off. I can't see where those characters go, because they've all realised that it's a family connection that is the only thing that's worth anything in that existence. So Spud, yes, has written the Trainspotting book, but it's his estranged wife who reads it and tells him how good it is, and they bond over that. That even Sick Boy, the most morally depraved and the most horrible of all the characters, and actually there's a big, in the book, in porno, he's much more vile. But even the fact that he is seen opening up the pub again that he got from his auntie, there's that family connection, and obviously Renton is going back, and he's going to move back in with his dad in his old room, so I don't see where they would have to maybe realise that, maybe family's boring and they get together for one last kind of, and I hate those kind of sequels. Yeah. It's going to be a bit like Expendables 2 or Expendables 3, I think, if that happens. But Begbie has a story, because even though, like you said, Rich, he does have this amazing, bond and scene with his son at the end, he is going back into prison, and he is, probably because they're all tied to their kind of inner characters. But Begbie's probably the only one that could could do something. And what it is, I mean, this is just going to be like a Scottish prison break. Maybe that's what it is.
I would watch that.
I would definitely watch that.
I'd watch anything Robert Carlyle's in anyway. He's just the most incredible actor. He really is.
What is the most disappointing sequel you've watched? So not your worst, we'll get onto that, but what's your disappointing? So the first one was really good, you couldn't wait for it, and then you came out of it and you're like, oh, you mean you could have said Star Wars.
I think it's actually the other movie that was in my final two for talking about the worst sequel ever.
Oh, let's get that in, yeah.
So Guardians of the Galaxy, in that I loved the first film. I thought that before that, I'm trying to remember if that came out before or after Thor 2, but they were both really funny. And I thought that was the one thing. I know the Marvel movies try to have little kind of wisecracks, but I thought that that Thor 2 and Guardians of the Galaxy were the first ones that were kind of unapologetic comedies. And I thought it was brilliant, Guardians of the Galaxy for that.
Thor Ragnarok, the Taika Waititi one.
Yeah, no, the second one. The second one is not.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I beg your pardon. Yes, that's right. Yeah, Thor T3. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, 2 was that big space hole and
there we go. Yeah.
That was horrible. Yeah, that was rubbish. But yeah, no, Thor 3 Ragnarok was absolutely hilarious. So I thought, oh, this is going to be so brilliant. It's so unlike any other Marvel movie. It's much more kind of human. It's much more interesting. It's a character-driven comedy.
That family again.
It is, exactly, yes. And then the second one came out, and it's like, oh, it's the horrible, huge, big fucking CGI, massive thing. I hate that. I can't stand gigantic CGI thing because I still see the joins.
Yeah.
And I also think it's just so kind of lazy. And that's how I'm sitting here. I'm dreading Doctor Strange's multiverse madness thing, because I know that's just going to be the same thing.
Dave got to see it a couple of days ago at a screener, so he's already seen it.
Is it just like swimming in a sea of confusing CGI?
Yes, but not. If anything, not enough.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, okay. I mean, I've got to see it anyway because my
for a
my
film
kids
that's called
all
Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah,
there's not enough multiverse. There's not enough madness in there. So.
Okay. So yeah, I was very, very, very disappointed with Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah. I thought it was a regression.
Yeah, it is a bit backwards.
It is. Yeah, you're right, and you're exactly right that the big bad is the worst thing about it. Ego is this. It's just boring. He's just a boring bad guy.
I've seen variations on it so many times.
Yeah, we didn't need it.
I quite enjoyed it.
Did you really?
But, again, I'm gonna have to say I went to the press screening of it, and they had like a big disco before. It wasn't in a normal like cinema. They put it in the Hammersmith Apollo.
Oh, right.
So it was like a concert.
Oh wow.
So it was really different. They had like this music beforehand and stuff, and I bought into it. I thought Dave Bautista as Drax was hilarious, but
he's brilliant.
But Guardians of the Galaxy is my favourite Marvel film.
Right.
So there is definitely a drop off between 1 and 2.
Yeah.
A lot, because I get it that they're a family now, but I don't really care about them. I don't care about them together. I like the characters individually. I like Rocket. I like Drax. I like Star-Lord even. But together, I nothing for me there anymore. What is your worst sequel ever?
I watched this again because I thought, no, it can't be as bad as I remember. But I did watch the whole thing again, and it is John Wick 2. I cannot stand John Wick 2.
Why?
Well, there's that. A lot of it's disappointment because I thought the first movie was perfect. I thought it was just brilliant. I was into it. The minute I heard the minute I read the one sentence pitch of that movie with Keanu Reeves, aging assassin, coming out of retirement, I'm just like, that's it. You've got me. You've got it. Yep. And I thought it was brilliantly done. I thought that I love the fact that it started because someone killed his dog. And I thought that was a really, really lovely human, very human kind of touch. And he had very human motivations for what he did. And it had a beginning, it had a middle, and it had an end. And then the second one, it's like the second John Wick movie is guided by utterly bullshit, unbelievable rules that make no sense whatsoever. And it's a movie where it seems that, okay, how are we going to move the plot? I know, let's make up another rule that this assassin's cabal has. You know, oh, you have a blood oath for this that you have to fulfill because you came out of retirement. And it's like, but no, he didn't come out of retirement, because I hate to sound like a trade union leader for the Assassin's Guild, but an assassin gets paid money to kill people. In the first movie, he doesn't, that's not what he does.
No,
he doesn't come out of retirement because someone pays him money to kill. He's not being an assassin. He is being a revenge killer, right? Yeah. Because someone fucked with him. So the whole this plot of John Wick 2 is based on something that's not true. He did not come out of retirement. And you might say, oh, but listen, you're picking at wholesale. I'm like, are you kidding with how much these guys stick to stupid rules? I can't believe that Ian McShane didn't come up with a bit of paper. No, actually, technically, if you look at subclause, 3 in this, he didn't actually accept money. So I must admit, I have a touch of kind of ADHD, OCD. So I really am a stickler for rules and logic in movies. And I am that irritating guy that, even though I've loved comics and comic books and comic book movies since a kid, I am the one that go, well, actually, technically, it wouldn't be possible for a man to leap that high over a building in a single bound, because once you factor, I'm that guy, okay? Yeah, so I think that it doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't make any sense.
Rules and assassins. No, the idea that you have these people who, for a living, kill people, they would use whatever leverage and advantage that they can. They're not going to go, all right, well, I'm not going to kill you because we're in a hotel. Yeah. It's like you can't trust criminals. That's why they're criminals. So why do you have a whole rule structure with the most anarchic section of society? Really irritates me.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, if he'd have, when the guy pulls out that coin, I only watched this for the first time this morning, essentially. Right. When the guy pulls out the coin for the blood oath, the exact same thing would have happened if John Wick had just gone, nah, piss off, I'm not doing it. Like, exactly the same thing. He'd have still tried to kill him. And he still ends up trying to kill him. It's just like, adds a whole different section to the movie that's just pointless.
There's loads of bits in this film that annoy me like that. Like, the whole beginning is him getting his car back, and then the car instantly gets smashes up.
Yeah.
That drives me mental. Yeah. And then there's a bit at the end when he kills the bad guy, and he leaves the hotel, goes back home for 30 seconds, and then they come back from the hotel like, you need to come back now. I'm like...
He had to go and get a bracelet. That's what it was, Dave.
Yeah,
that's right. In his pocket or anything.
I know, he has these stupid attachments to his dead wife that are supposed to represent the great love that he had. A love that was so great that he actually became the first ever assassin, really, to leave this guild because of the love. And that love is represented by a dog, all right, fair enough, but by a fucking car? I'm sorry. It's not an emotional connection. It's a fucking car.
It's a nice car.
It's a nice car.
Millions of nice cars out there, true. And a bracelet, kind of fair enough. I mean, my problem isn't so much that he goes and gets the bracelet, but it's like, okay, he's shot the guy in the head in the hotel, which is just utterly stupid for him to do anyway. Just wait till he gets outside. That whole rule annoys me. That rule that you cannot kill someone, you cannot do business inside the grounds of the Continental Hotel. Why is there not 50 million assassins waiting right outside that hotel at all times of the day and night, just waiting for them? Why don't they have an assassin's version of that prank with the bucket of water above the door, except it's acid? You know what I mean? The rules are crazy. So he knows he does that, which is really stupid because he could have just waited until the guy is going to go outside sooner or later. And I know he says this great line, oh, it's amazing how one can eat a different meal every day for so long. As in, like, no, you fucking can't. At some point, you're wanting a Big Mac, right? That's it. He's going to go out. So he kills him, and it's pretty obvious. Keanu Reeves knows, okay, everyone's going to be coming after me. So then he goes out, and I'm like, okay, fair enough. And I don't have that same problem that you do, Dave. I'm like, okay, it's the one thing that he's got left with his wife. Why he didn't take it originally, I don't know. At the start of the movie, I remember, just got that thing, goes back, takes it.
He has pockets.
Yeah, but then he goes back for a meeting with Ian McShane in the middle of the city. Fucking why? Just run, keep running. He goes all the way back for a meeting with Ian McShane, only to have to run again. And it's just,
and why take the dog? That's just hampering you at that point, isn't it?
Well, and that's what annoys me about, because I did say to you guys that I couldn't remember if I thought John Wick 3 was even worse. I said, because I just don't have the will to watch it again. But because, again, OCD, I did watch as much as I could of John Wick 3 again. And the dog is completely pointless in John Wick 3, because 5 minutes into the film, he fucking takes the dog back to the hotel. He's in the taxi. The taxi stops in traffic and he's like, he has 1 coin left. 1 coin, that's all he's got in the world. And he gives it to the taxi driver. Take the dog back to the hotel. Fucking hell. How stupid. How absolutely stupid.
Do you struggle to remember what is John Wick 1, 2, and 3? Do you feel like it's a bit samey?
I think until I went back and watched them again, yes, absolutely. But what is interesting is that there's another thing that irritates me about John Wick 2 is I don't think that there's even any development with the fight scenes. It becomes the don't get me wrong, that first time you see him like lie down and shoot out the shins of someone when they come into the corner, like, that's really clever. Shin shot, they fall, headshot. But he does that literally 20 times. He has a long barrel gun, shoot, run out of bullets, throw it at the guy, pull out a pistol, shoot him. Happens 10 times. The actual thing, him lower than someone, shooting them through the head and the blood splatters above 10 times. And it's really repetitive. And I would never have thought that something which obviously, it's incredible choreography to do that.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing.
It's mind-blowing. But it's too repetitive. And I think one thing that is good about John Wick 3 is that there's genuinely more imagination, that one of the chase scenes, he's on a horse.
Yeah,
brilliant.
great.
That's good. And the first kind of long extended fight scene is in the ancient weapons store, where they're just dragging these ancient things off it, and that's incredibly inventive. But John Wick 2 didn't even do that. I can't think of anything. Okay, so there's one big running fighting thing, which is after he kills the sister after she's about to be coronated, and it's in these catacombs. But again, that whole thing it relies on him leaving certain weapons in the catacombs that he's going to run by. Now, if that was in Scotland, someone would have fucking nicked it. You couldn't. That's not a plan at all. So things like that really, really, really annoy me. Yeah. And even when I talk about just how the dog is this thing that really isn't a thing in John Wick 2, Lawrence Fishburne's character and the homeless assassins, which again is a lovely touch. It's a classic kind of comic book thing to do, but they don't do anything. It's set up. You get this great actor, and all they do is they help him like an underground fucking route into a hotel room. That's all they do. And even in the third movie, and I watched it going, oh well, there's obviously going to be tons of stuff but no, it's not. They get killed in the first like 20 minutes. It's pointless things like that,
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the beauty of the first one is it's 90 minutes, it's short, it's sharp, you instantly get what's motivates him. Like within the first 5 minutes, you completely understand everything you need to understand about him.
So
the
cool.
fight scenes are great, the gun work is amazing, and then the second one bloats itself too much. It's half an hour too long. It tries to do this world building that just completely confuses the story and dilutes everything. I don't give a shit about gold coins and bloody assassins guilds and stuff. It just layers that up, which dulls the rest of the story. And I completely understand why you don't like it. I really do. I've watched both of them in quick succession.
And it's also got the climactic shoot off is in a room of mirrors. Again, enough with shootouts in a room of mirrors. I feel like I've seen that a million times.
If you want to see that really done really well, you just watch The Guest. That does it nicely.
The Guest is good.
Yeah.
I haven't seen The Guest.
It's very good.
Put that down.
Very good.
Because I'm trying to think of, there was a James Bond movie that was done in, and I'm trying to think what one it was, but I feel like I've seen it so many times.
Yeah,
it was the man with the golden gun, wasn't it?
Was it? Yeah.
And his yeah. You when we were talking about Star Wars earlier, you mentioned that you used to Empire Strikes Back is great, but your now big hate is that it has no ending.
Yeah.
This has no ending, does it?
No.
Is that a thing you really hate, or?
Yeah, it is. I feel it's a con. I remember the first time that I was really aware of it was when they shot Back to the Future 2 and 3 back to back. And when I heard that, I'm like, oh, that sounds a bit dodgy. That sounds like they've shot one movie and they're splitting it into two so they can make more money. And so that's why I hate. That's why I hate things like that. It's either, listen, as much as I don't like movies that are longer than a football match, make it into 1 3-hour, 4-hour movie if you have to, or chop out all the bloated bits and make it into one movie. You've obviously only got the ideas really for one movie there. Don't split it into two. And I find it hard to think of a movie that sets up a sequel so explicitly by not ending the film that couldn't have been pushed together with that ensuing film to make a better movie.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
And now there's going to be a fourth one. There's going to be TV series, spin-offs. Have you had enough, or are you going to go check out John Wick 4 when it comes out?
Oh, I mean, see, this is the thing, right?
I'm a sucker. I'm going to see it.
I will still go and see it because...
Oh, yeah, I get this.
It's right. It's one of my wife's most favorite movie franchises. She absolutely loves it. Like I say, she's the complete opposite of me than absolutely everything. But there's also, it's FOMO, isn't it? It's that fear of missing out. It's like, what if there's something, because these people are obviously clever people making this movie, and Keanu Reeves is clever, and it's like you still kind of think back to that first one and you're like, there's going to be something. And again, like I say in John Wick 3, that there's much more imaginative shootouts, and the fact that they've got Jerome Flynn in it as a bad guy in Morocco. There's just little things like, I don't want to miss out on fantastic stunt casting like that by not seeing the movie.
I think putting Halle Berry in the third one made it a little bit more interesting. At least it wasn't just John Wick shooting people in the foot and the head. It wasn't.
And she's remarkable because what's interesting is that, and I like the fact that she has dogs, and the dogs actually do something useful in the movie. So you can understand why she'd get annoyed when Jerome Flynn shoots her dog, because it's a fucking badass dog. But the thing about Halle Berry that I find slightly distracting is that I think, to my knowledge, or it's certainly the first movie I saw her in, that I noticed her having long hair. And I kept looking at her going, has she had plastic surgery? Is she one of these people and it's like, no, she's got long hair. And I'm really not used to long-haired Halle Berry. So I kept getting kind of pulled out of the movie by that. And again, maybe that's just an OCD, ADHD thing, that I have. But the dogs were great in it. I love the dogs. They were like those dogs that Action Man used to have. I'm sure at one point he had a dog that had like a bulletproof vest on it when I was a kid. Maybe I just imagined that. Brilliant.
Amazing. I'm exactly like you in the fact that even if I don't like say for like Venom, for example, we watched the second Venom movie and I didn't really like it, but I'm still going to watch the third one because I still want to know what's going to happen and I still want to see it and I still hope it's going to be better,
I'll watch every Marvel movie. I mean, I probably hate 50% of them. But I'll still, it's just one of those things. It's
like me in Fast and Furious. If you start at one, then I have to watch all fucking 9 of them.
That's interesting because it is the one franchise that has never sucked me in, and I have tried because I see things like the one that was in Dubai. Just based on the clips, I'm like, oh, that looks like that'd be an amazing movie. But I've watched like the first one. It's like, okay, it's all right, and then just I've not really got into it. And then that Thingy and Hobbs, I thought was just god awful, absolute pish, and that's got Jason Statham, and I'd watch Jason Statham read the back of a bag of crisps, and I still I hated that.
I think that the Fast and Furious franchise is a very kind of
Marmite.
Yeah, very Marmite. You love it or you hate it. I kind of love it. It's kind of my guilty pleasure. I love them all. I think the first movie's basically Point Break with cars, which, at the age I watched it, that's exactly what I wanted in a movie.
You loved cars as well.
Yeah. And also, see, I don't like cars. I'm not a car guy. I don't get them at all. Like my dad has this phrase he always uses about me, and he says, Dominic, the only thing that you know about cars is how to aim them. And I also have a horrible habit throughout my life of denting cars when I turn right into anywhere in an underground car park in Canada, because you drive on the right side of the road. I always clip the bumper, so I don't. I get really. I'm not that guy that when you get a hire car, I sit there having a panic attack for 2 minutes because I'm convinced I'm going to hit something. So I think that's probably why Fast and Furious does not appeal to me.
Has there ever been a sequel that you really didn't enjoy the first one, and then you kind of got dragged to go and see the rest, and you thought, oh, that's much better than I thought it was going to be?
There have. Oh, do you know what? There's been movies I've seen the sequel first. Okay. And then thought, oh, that's good, and gone back. And I wish I could remember them, but I can't remember them now. But no, I don't think...
No Bonds, no horror films. They're always quite long franchisey films.
No, because I think I tend to do away with most horror films after the first one. And again, my wife is the opposite. My wife genuinely has seen every single horror movie that's ever been made, including the horrible, sick fucking things like Saw and Wolf Creek, and that I just, and Hostel, that I just can't. Yeah, I can't even get into that kind of thing. But no, it's the rather boring answer. I mean, obviously there's sequels I can see that are, there's that classic list of sequels that are better than the original.
What would you put in that? Aliens?
Oh, Aliens and T2, Terminator 2. There's not Godfather 2. Actually, I think I came close, but I didn't dare. Put that as the worst sequel. I thought that would be just me being a bit up myself and a bit arch.
Wow. Okay, I'm acceptable saying it's not as good as the first one, but you're saying you think it's not a good sequel or a good film.
I think it's boring and overblown and too long.
I do too.
It's two separate movies, and this whole thing. Yeah. Oh yeah, but the comparison between between De Niro and Pacino's characters. Like, fuck off, It's just, I just think it's. I don't get it. I actually, and this will. I mean, you're probably going to kick me off this podcast when I say this.
No.
I enjoyed Godfather 3 more than Godfather 2. I think Godfather 3 is one of the most wrongly maligned sequels of all time. I love that movie.
Do you know that's the answer to this question then?
Oh yeah, well there you go.
You hated the second one.
Oh yeah,
and then you watched the third one, and you're like, that's better.
That's a really good. I think Godfather 3 is brilliant. The helicopter shootout when he's in the high-rise thing. I think that's absolutely fantastic. That's like Die Hard meets the Mafia, and I actually think that Sofia Coppola's. I loved her performance.
Oh, come on!
No, I thought there was just because she's supposed to be this person who's just not connected in any way with the family. So I think having her doing the most complimentary way, very naturalistic style. I think that I really liked it. And I love the colours, that kind of the colorization, that kind of sepia brown kind of colouring that was through. I thought it was great.
I've never seen Godfather 3, but I totally agree with you on 2. I found it overblown and boring and dull. And you're the first person who's ever said the same thing. Everyone always loves Godfather Part 2, but I'm so glad there's someone else in the world that thinks the same that I do.
But yet no one's picked it on this podcast yet. I gave Rich a list. I was like, these ones are going to come up quick.
Yeah.
Okay, so Aliens, Terminator 2, Godfather 2, there's Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
And no one has picked Godfather 2 or Empire Strikes Back yet as their best ever sequels.
Well, I can understand it. I thought you would get... Yeah, maybe because Godfather 2 is always on that list. But I'm surprised no one's done Empire.
No.
No,
so am I. Because we want to talk about that one.
Yeah.
But Pacino in the third one, you do get that classic line I thought I was out and they dragged me back in.
Oh, goosebumps. I remember seeing that on the trailer and that was it for me. That was just, because he is the most watchable scene-chewing actor in the history of cinema.
I'm going to have to go watch Godfather 3 now.
There's 2 versions now, Rich, because
right.
there was like a re-edit like last year or something.
Oh, okay. Oh, I must see that.
It's called the Coda edit or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So I'll be interested to see what you think of that, Dom. I haven't watched it yet either. Apparently it's a better film.
Right.
So...
Okay.
Your dream sequel, what's that one?
Dream sequel is Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And I really could have picked any one of those John Hughes Brat Pack movies because I absolutely loved them as I was a teenager. And and it was incredible that when I finally moved over to Canada in 2009 and my kids started going to school and high schools, even though it's Canada's basically America with just nicer people. And so all that iconography of the buses and the lockers and everything, which I dreamed of when I was a kid watching John Hughes movies and, graduation balls, my kids actually got to do it, although apparently even back in the UK, they have graduation balls and all that stuff now. But yeah, but they never did sequels. They really never did sequels to those movies. And I think that Ferris Bueller's Day Off was the most sequel worthy because I have this thing and it reflects my own journey as a parent that I always thought what happens when Ferris Bueller himself is a dad and it's his kid that is dicking around at school and, nicking cars and bunking off because the behavior, and I hate to sound like a dad, the behavior that I found wildly cool back then, I now genuinely look at as horrifically irresponsible. And I've got my son Charlie, he's in his last year of high school. And if he even falls behind in an assignment, I'm absolutely going mental on him. The idea that he could just fuck off for a day and end up in a parade and steal a car and everything, I would kill him. And you're just like, no, listen. And I keep saying to him this thing, Charlie, just get through high school, right? It's a horrible time of your life. It's beset with horrible traps you can fall into. You have to work so hard, harder than you ever have to work in your life, doing a lot of pointless stuff that you're not going to need, but you have to get that number at the end, that percentage, that grade, that mark. And then when you go to university, you can fuck around to your heart's content because you still just get a 2-1 or a 2-2. I mean, I did nothing. I did not a scrap of work at Bristol University and I got a 2-2. It's like, it's impossible. It's impossible to fail university. You can fuck around. But so I think that I get parental panic attacks even just thinking about Ferris Bueller's Day Off now as a parent. Yeah,
I haven't watched it in a long time, and I remember thinking like it was really cool when I was a kid. Like Ferris Bueller was really cool, and I watched it again today, and I thought, why does anyone like him? He's such a dick. Like he's horrible to his friend. He's horrible to his girlfriend. He's just not a nice person to be around at all. Like, he's a dick.
Apart from the shower, I still remember thinking he was really cool in the shower when he was singing that song, and I remember copying that so many times in the shower. But you're right, he's a horrible, selfish, exploitative. But he's the worst. He's not that much better a friend than Sick Boy is in Trainspotting. Really,
no, he's not.
It's basically if Ferris Bueller had grown up in Scotland in a less affluent neighbourhood, he could have been Sick Boy. He really could. And Cameron would have been Spud. I mean, that's it.
I think when you're younger, you wanted to be Ferris. You think that'd be cooler. And then you grow up and you're feeling, actually, I'm Cameron now, aren't I? I'm a Cameron.
We're all Cameron.
We're all Cameron,
all Cameron. No.
Would you have... So you're going to set the sequel now, right?
Yes.
So it's got Matthew Broderick, definitely back as Ferris.
Yep.
Would you have him breaking the 4-4 as well? Or would you let Ferris Bueller Jr. just do the 4-4 break it?
That is a fantastic question. That is a very... Because that's interesting. Part of me says, no, it would have to be Matthew Broderick because, again, like Trainspotting 2 did, I would like to see callbacks. I'd like to see references. I'd like to see him in the shower again, doing that singing thing. I'd like to see updates of the lines that he said. That would be fascinating. But at the same time, I think it would be quite clever to have his son breaking the fourth wall to show how it's not about him. I had to show that connection isn't there anyway. He's outside of the action. And that's what I'd like about the sequel is what does a guy like Ferris Bueller, who I'm assuming in the sequel that Ferris Bueller has a boring job, right? He's not like a cool fucking rock
in
star.
computers still though.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. And so I'd like to see how the whole movie is about how he deals with his kid. And it could go one of either two ways. It could be that either, he lets his kid know through his own experience, no, listen, sometimes you have to behave, which is unlikely. It's probably going to end up that his kid will help grown-up Ferris discover what fun is again, and they'll end up on a parade, both of them doing a duet. So maybe it's both. Maybe that's what's in. Maybe it's you've got a nice contrast between, and you could see how you could get some nice cuts between grown-up Ferris saying something breaking the fourth wall, and then it cuts to his son saying something that completely undermines it and actually makes grown-up Ferris look like a bit of a dick. Maybe grown-up Ferris is still trying to be, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe grown-up Ferris is still trying to be cool.
Yeah.
Maybe the son's more of a Cameron.
It's more of a
getting dragged along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I reckon grown-up Ferris is also skipping a day at work as well.
Yeah, that's it.
Maybe they nearly bump into each other a few times and stuff like Ferris and his dad do in this movie.
Yeah,
there's those moments when the whole thing nearly explodes.
Gosh, this is even more brilliant a sequel than I even could have dreamed of now with what you guys are saying.
I like the bit in the first one where Cameron and Ferris's girlfriend are talking while he's dancing on the float, and they go, they're talking about what they're going to do later, what they're going to be, and they're like, what's Ferris going to be? And they're like, fry cook at McDonald's.
I'd like to think he got married to Sloane, and I think now they're divorced.
Yeah.
I don't think he would be able to keep that going.
No.
And I think that would obviously be something in the sequel. I think that they would end up getting back together because maybe it's the son taking the day off and they're going to find him, and so there would definitely be something they would get back together at the end.
Yeah.
But what's Cameron? What's Cameron doing in the sequel?
I've got this weird idea that, have you seen Succession? That Succession is actually the sequel to Ferris Bueller, but for Cameron.
That's true. Yeah, it could just be a hub on these. It could be this new age guy. That would be new age, incredibly rich guy. That would be quite.
Whose dad hates him for smashing his Ferrari.
Exactly.
Yes, the Brian Cox character is that dad.
Yeah.
That's a great theory. That's a great idea.
It's right in itself, isn't it? Because you have to have those legacy characters back. You have to have Alan Ruck come as Cameron. I can't remember who the girl is. I can't remember her name.
Sloane. It's got
Mia Sara.
Oh yeah, Mia Sara, and also Baby from Dirty Dancing as well.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes.
Sister, Jennifer Grey.
She'll have to be in it as well.
Yeah. I love Jennifer Grey.
Just in a phone call, maybe, for some advice.
I think Jennifer Grey's brilliant because, again, it's that thing that the older you get, the more you relate to Jennifer Grey's character more than anyone else, because it would be so fucking irritating to have a brother that's Ferris Bueller.
And obviously we can get Charlie Sheen back.
Yeah, because Charlie Sheen now looks like Charlie Sheen in that movie.
Yeah.
Where they put the makeup on him to make him look drugged up. That's Charlie Sheen now.
That is him now.
Did you know they made a TV series of Ferris Bueller in the 90s?
I did not know.
Like a season. I was looking at it today because I was typing it into IMDb, and it popped up. I was like, amazing. And Jennifer Aniston is in it for 13 episodes, and she plays the sister. So it's none of the original cast come back.
Oh, and is it so? It's the same. Is it the same idea that he's like a bit of a scamp and he's having days off and everything? Is it that? Presumably, it's that same kind of.
Here's the bio. Based on the popular feature film Ferris Bueller's Day Off, this half-hour situation comedy followed the high school adventures of Ferris Bueller and his friends. So they recast everyone. And the guy who plays Ferris looks like he's about 30 in the picture, to be honest.
But some of those people in those Brat Pack movies were 30 when they were playing kids. That was definitely inspired by Stoker Channing in Grease. I think that casting went a little bit crazy with high school age characters at that time.
Broderick's so good in Ferris, though. He's like, it's just that part is amazing. He's so natural as him.
Yeah, and I think that's why you like him in spite of him being, as you said, a quite horrible character, because he just that charisma. You know, we all know people. We all know people like that who are irritating and annoying, but they're the funniest guy in the room. They're the smartest guy in the room. They're the most charismatic, and that makes them likable. And it's incredible. It's a really, I'm not sure actually how old he was when he played that guy, but it's a very, he plays it in such a knowing way that he plays it almost like he's 40 and he knows everything.
Yeah,
I know. And that incredible. He has just. It's almost like a perfectly. I mean, obviously, all the people in this Brat Pack movies were just. They were the most beautiful fucking people that I'd seen in cinema. But there was something about Matthew Broderick. He had a flawless face. It was like, I'm sure it was completely symmetrical. You could fold it in half, fold it in quarters, and everything. Yeah. It was just completely, absolutely perfect. Because even like your Andrew McCarthy's and your Judd Nelsons and that were good looking, but not in a remotely perfect way.
Yeah.
Molly Ringwald was beautiful in the most unconventional way. But Matthew Broderick was just like it was like a Tom Cruise kind of look. He had that Tom Cruise kind of face,
Yeah, absolutely.
So when did you first see Ferris? When was it released? Did you go and see it in cinema?
Yes, I would have seen all of them on cinema. I saw all of them on video. I had them all on video because I actually wrote one of my theses at Bristol University on the Brat Pack movies of John Hughes. So I watched them continuously. I watched and rewatched and rewatched and rewatched them multiple times, and I still think that they are. It's interesting because when TV shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Dawson's Creek came along, and people were like, oh, this is just great, isn't it amazing having these kids talk with this amazing dialogue. And I'm like, well, kind of think John Hughes has done all that. Actually, that characters who were able to express their inner angst, and I think in terms of giant performances, the one everyone talks about Judd Nelson in The Breakfast Club, but I think that Ducky in Pretty in Pink, what's his name again?
John Cryer.
John Cryer is an enormous, huge, gigantic, charismatic performance. It's probably the one up there with Ferris Bueller in terms of just an absolutely dominating, charismatic performance.
Yeah, because a lot of John Hughes films you've watched them all, haven't aged brilliantly. Like there's points of 16 Candles, isn't it? Yeah. That's a bit iffy, and the Asian stuff. Ferris Bueller's, I think, got away with it. There's not much in there that you can't think that's a bit iffy nowadays.
Yeah, but again, I'm I don't, I'm not want to come across, I don't want to be Matt Letizia here in any way, shape, or form, or get all talk radio. But I think it is, I think it's a debate that to be had that whether movies back then that have things that are unpalatable today should be edited or have things cut out, or whether they should be viewed as things of their time and judged the rights and wrongs in terms of today and back then. I just I was talking recently on a 90s podcast about True Romance and about how that was my favorite movie of the 90s. But
so good,
that scene between Dennis Hopper and
Christopher Walken. I'm with
Christopher Walken, yes, which was the most powerful scene, one of the most powerful scenes ever. It's very problematic with the language and everything like that they uses, but it's like, no, but that's that character. And this is where I kind of get a little bit confused. And this is where I do genuinely have to speak to my children, especially my daughters, who are both wonderfully grown up and wonderfully woke and have educated me in the ways of the world today, and rightly so. And I just hope to hell they never see GamesMaster on YouTube. So I do often, I ask them, how should I behave with this? And I think that's okay, because this is their time, this is their generation, this is their thing. But I'm not in so much of a rush to, it would be like saying, okay, there's a movie about Genghis Khan and he murders lots of people and that's bad, so we'll cut it out. Or, what it's like, we know Hitler was a wrong un, Hitler was bad, but would you take a movie that has Hitler in with him espousing his horrific, repugnant views on Jewish people, and would you cut that out? Well, no, you wouldn't, because it wouldn't make any sense. You wouldn't be able to judge Hitler, as the vile monster that he was. So it's, I think it gets quite complex and a bit, I find it a bit confusing.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, actually. I think that if you if you destroy what's happened in the past, then how do you learn from it in the future, I guess? And there's a difference.
That's a much better way of putting it than my rambling way. Thank you, Rich. Yes, that's what I meant to say.
There's a difference between like the people pulling down statues of slave traders in Bristol. I completely get that, because don't celebrate that. That's ridiculous. But don't ignore that it happened, because that's worse. Because you're doomed to repeat it if you do.
Yeah.
And so I completely understand and completely get where you're coming from. I totally agree. Like, yes, there are John Hughes movies that are problematic, and turned out that maybe he was slightly problematic himself as a person. We don't know. We weren't there. We can't judge. But, you know, there are some rumours about that. But
because isn't it better, maybe, and well, maybe this is a dodgy thing, isn't it better to watch an old movie and see a joke that you think is racist and learn from that than not having seen it at all?
Yeah, I think so.
You know, again, I think I've made exactly the same point that you just made, Rich, better, and I've just tried to repeat it, and again, it's come out clumsy.
I think if you want to,
you're right.
Just put a warning maybe at the beginning of the start of the film. Don't edit anything out. Just say there might be some subject some people will find offensive, but this was a piece of its time.
Do you know what? Exactly. And why not? Because you get that warning about language and sexual scenes and my favourite occasional drug use, like that when that comes up, and smoking as well sometimes. So why not just simply add to that, and views of their time that, you know, we're not great.
Exactly.
Definitely.
I've got one final question. Sadly, John Hughes is not around anymore. Won't be the writer, won't be the director of the sequel. Is there anyone you'd think be able to pick up the mantle and do that job? I'm currently, in my head, got no one. So good luck.
It's difficult because the teen comedy movie genre is not one I tend to go see these days. I'm not au fait with who is cast on it. I mean, listen, there was a time I would have said Josh Whedon, but, you know, talking about problematic people, I'm not sure you'd find any teenagers willing to work with him these days. You know, I think of British directors like, you know, who've done comedy stuff like Mike Newell or whatever, but it's not right. There must be tons of people in TV that are doing TV. Do you know what? Whoever was responsible, because I managed to watch by osmosis an incredible generation of American kids TV comedies. And the Witches of Willoughby Place, and there was that whole thing that my kids watched, and they were fantastic sitcoms. So I would say someone who directed one of those great Nickelodeon teen kids comedies could probably do something like that. That's a very vague answer. Like
Laurie Nunn, who did Sex Education. You know, you've seen that kind of Netflix show. That's do you know what's interesting? Right. See, I haven't seen that. And I'll tell you why. So my kids now are 16, 17 and 23. I'm whispering because I've got a bad track record of getting my kids' ages wrong. The one that could be 23 is in the house and she might be 24. Anyway, so so they have all watched that show, and I know that it's obviously it has sexual content, and I don't want to be in the position of like I overhear my kids talking about it, and it's just like la 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 la, I can't hear you. So it's really it's kind of put me off a little bit about that. I'm still that dad that's really embarrassed about, you know, sexual, and you know, like this whole thing about how embarrassing it used to be when you're watching a movie with your parents. I now know it's the parents that are the most embarrassed. It wasn't you as a kid, because I will leave the room. Leave the room. You know,
I've got a friend who went to the cinema with his then girlfriend to a film called 9 Songs. Have you ever seen that film?
No.
Basically, it's they didn't know this. It's just a couple fucking through 9 songs.
I mean, I guess, you know, you can't complain about the title.
So about an hour and a half, he's just like, this is the worst thing in the world.
Why don't you just put it on iTunes and watch Pornhub?
Exactly. That's great. Brilliant.
Why would you even go? I always find that really interesting now is is this the whole raison d'etre behind sexually explicit, like, cinematic release movies now? It's like, because I know that, there was a stage when we were younger and you would go, you'd watch The Hunger because you're like, oh yeah, I've heard about that scene in it. But now we spend most of our life avoiding pornographic images. Anytime I turn on the internet and try and find a feed of a football game and I get, Carla, 18, round the corner in Calgary is trying to mess.
Well, it happens to our MPs as well. They're looking for tractors. Quite easy to do, apparently.
That's true.
Fucking idiots.
And those were Dominik Diamond's Unequal sequels. I cannot believe that we got Dominik Diamond on our podcast. 12-year-old Rich is peeing himself right now, with general excitement. And
he was so good.
He was so good. So brilliant.
Funny.
Yeah, absolutely. Incredibly funny, incredibly charming, passionate about his movies, and just a wonderful person to talk to. I loved that. I really, I can't say enough how much I enjoyed recording that episode.
Yeah, it's one of my favourites, I think.
Yeah.
All of them are my favourites. Obviously, everyone who's listened, who's been on the show.
We don't have favourites,
No, but that was
brilliant.
That was brilliant. Yeah. And his picks, I love that we finally got someone's best sequel. Yeah. That was also someone's worst sequel.
I know, right?
So that was a first.
That was nice. And I actually kind of weirdly agree with both of them. In lots of ways. I definitely agree that it's not a great film, but I don't think it's I think there are good bits of it. I don't know. Yeah, yeah.
But I love the way he could relate to it. That's what makes movies so special.
That's it. That's exactly it. Yeah. It meant something different to him than it did to Layla, who had it as her worst sequel.
Yeah. And Trainspotting 2, it's an interesting sequel. And because when I was talking to Layla about it, I was like, oh yeah, this is rubbish. And then I spoke to Dominic, and I was like, oh yeah, this is a good sequel. So I have no idea where I lie on it anymore.
Yeah.
Because they put so good arguments up for it. I'm like, oh no, this does make sense now.
You're right. Yeah, I think when I watched Trainspotting 2, I didn't hate it, but I certainly didn't love it. It's that kind of movie, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
You could be convinced either way.
Yeah.
And so
finally got you to watch a John Wick movie.
You did, yeah. So yeah, I've watched 2 John Wick movies now because I watched the first one as well. But yeah, John Wick 2, I completely again understand where he's coming from on that. It is very much more of the same with the first one, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's nothing really new.
They try to.
Sort of.
Like I said in the episode, I get confused what is what.
And I think that says a lot, doesn't it, really? If you get confused about what happens in which movie, they're probably quite samey.
He's probably wearing a suit, he's probably shooting someone in the leg and then the face.
Yes, yeah.
And then throwing the gun at them. And that could be 1, 2, or 3, or possibly 4 you're listening to this.
I haven't seen 3 yet, so yeah. I might watch 3 before 4 comes out, and then we'll do a review of 4 in the extra episodes.
That sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
And then we got to watch a classic.
An absolute classic. Ferris Bueller. What a twat. It's funny how your perception of movies change, though, right?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, Ferris Bueller was incredibly cool, and now as an adult, I watch him. I'm like, oh, you little shits! You are not a nice person. And now we're Camerons. Yeah, that's it. Now we're all Camerons.
Yeah, I'm surprised there's never been a sequel. Like I said, there has been a TV series spin-off that was doomed to fail straight from the start when you have none of the original cast in it.
I still maintain that that Succession is a sequel to Ferris Bueller, but for Cameron.
I think that's a good theory. I haven't watched enough Succession to quote.
No, that's
talk
fair.
About it.
That's fair enough. But great choice, and some great ideas for kind of what the dream sequel would be as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Loved it.
And just talking to Dominic, man,
anyone who wasn't around in the 90s, you won't understand how much of a big deal this was for me and Dave.
Because as soon as he said yes, we couldn't believe it.
Yeah, there are iconic things from GamesMaster that I will never ever forget. He was the king of dodgy innuendos in GamesMaster, wasn't he? Yeah. And the holding up a carrot and 2 Brussels sprouts in that way, and like they had like people like wrestlers on playing games against little kids. So like Hacksaw Jim Duggan, I remember. And I just loved it. I just loved that show so much. You know, it was so good.
And he didn't disappoint?
No, he really didn't disappoint at all. And yeah, what a guy. What a guy. Thank you, Dominik, for coming on our little podcast. We should also do a bit of promoting for him, actually, because he was good enough to come on our podcast. We should probably do a little promoting of his stuff. Dave, you've got it all written down, haven't you? But the thing that sticks in my mind is his little old purple column, which is where he writes about
Substack.
Yeah, he writes about games, but for adults. So
which we now are.
Yeah, we are now. Yeah, that's true. I'm not so much of a gamer these days, though, but I am an adult apparently, so it might appeal. Who knows?
But you've also got a kid that's playing games.
That's true. That is very true.
So it is also relevant to you. Yeah, he's a Substack. Find him on there. Dominik's little old purple column, because he used to write another column back in the day called something very similar.
Yeah.
There's a free stuff. You can either read it, or he has a podcast, or there is some stuff behind a paywall if you really love Dominik.
But yeah, definitely get onto Substack and definitely get behind that paywall as well. I'm sure it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, out every Thursday.
Every Thursday. That's a good day. That's a good day. There aren't many things released on a Thursday. Thursday's a bit of a down day. So yeah, that's a good day to get things out. I like it. So make sure you go and listen to that on a Thursday, his bits of podcast, and read his stuff. But then you've got us on a Friday and on a Monday. So if you liked what you've heard, if you've tuned in just to hear Dominik, which is fair because the man's a hero,
legend,
then we've got loads of other interviews with loads of other cool people, and you can catch those every Monday when we're doing our series. And we're past the middle of series 3 now, Dave.
Mate, we're nearly done.
We've nearly done series 3. This is crazy.
Scary.
I can't believe it. But yeah, so what it means is you've got a whole other 2 series. If you've only just joined us for this one, a whole 2 other series to go back and listen to. And also, every week, even if we're not doing a series, me and Dave do a little extra episode. It's normally about half an hour, 40 minutes on a Friday. Just a little snippet about whatever's going on in the world of sequels, really. So make sure you listen to those. Hit that little subscribe button wherever you get your podcast from, and we'll drop into your inbox every week, maybe even twice a week. So yeah, make sure you do that. If you like what you've heard, then give us a little rating. Give us 5 stars or a heart or a tick, or write us a review. You know, that's fine. You can tell us we're rubbish. Just give us a 5-star review as well. We're fine with that. Tell your friends about us, please, because you know that's what really matters. You know, if you've thought of someone who would really like to listen to a movie podcast, tell them about it. You know, tell your nan, tell anyone you like. We'd love to have them listen along. But also, you can get in touch with us too, because we're on Twitter and Instagram and all those social media things. We're at Unequal Sequel. I say all those social media things, just those 2.
I'd say we're not.
We're at Unequal Sequel. And we also have a Hotmail account as well if you want to send us an email for some reason. It's unequalsequel@hotmail.com.
Again, you smashed it, mate. Well done.
I can't believe I talked for that long. It's the most I've talked in ages.
You can now go back in your box for a while. Thank you for everyone for listening to us this week. Really appreciate it. Thank you for the people who have said kind words about us this week. That was very unexpected. And thank you.
It was. We should probably mention a couple of the people that have sent us messages, maybe. We had a message about our recent Star Wars episode, just to point out that where we said that George Lucas could do romance, because he did it in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Turns out he had other writers. I didn't even realise. I knew he had a different director, but I didn't know he had other writers.
So it's even worse than we thought.
So yeah,
basically.
Maybe
that was from Tom Brooks. Thank you for that. And then thank you for Scott Wallace from a nice message that just said he wishes we were in another lockdown so we could go back and listen to all the other episodes and watch all the films, the good and the shit.
Yeah, that's true. There are a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We love the messages.
I've got nothing else to say apart from thank you again. So it is a... I'm trying to think what goodbye in Japanese is, but I have no idea. All I know is konnichiwa, and
that's hello, I think, isn't it?
Yep. So we're just going to go out and...
I know arigato, but that's thank you.
Okay, just bye. Bye. It's a bye from me and a bye from him.
Bye!
You guys have a great week. Okay? Bye.